Have you ever felt that the things that you desire in your life just does not fit the mold of what everyone else says is right for you? Well, in today's episode, I am going to be sharing with you a conversation with my dear friend, Graham Cochrane, who has recently written his second book called Rebel. And in it, he's going to help you discover how to find the unique identity that is you and to go your own way and create life on your terms.
Are you ready to take your message, your business, and your life to the next level?
Want to learn from someone with more than a decade of experience, training tens of thousands of people from all around the world?
Hi, Cliff. This is Pauline from Auckland, New Zealand.
John from Calgary, Alberta.
Amy Porterfield.
Michael Hyatt.
Dan here from Dunedin, New Zealand.
Ray Edwards. Mark Mason. Mike Stelzner.
Pat from Smart Passive Income.
It's Darren from Melbourne, Australia.
Now is the time to live the life of your dreams and do the work you feel most called to do in the world.
Welcome to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show.
Here's your host, Cliff Ravenscraft.
Welcome back, my friend. I am super delighted to have you join me for this episode. As I said earlier, I'm going to be sharing a conversation with my dear friend, Graham Cochrane. And he has recently written this second book. And I just got to tell you that I am thrilled to tell you that I finally got around to reading his first book. Now, Graham Cochrane is somebody that I look up to with a great deal of respect. This is somebody who went from food stamps to building a knowledge-based business from the ground up surrounding a YouTube channel and built that to over $1 million a year revenue generating business. Then he made a decision that, you know what? I want something different. I want to do something that's bigger than the technical sides of things. Now, does that sound familiar? Many of you who know my journey know there's a lot of parallels between my story and Graham Cochrane. Now, you'll learn that I have had the honor and privilege of coaching Graham through his transition from Recording Revolution to the work that he's doing today. And I also will tell you that he has already written and published a best-selling book called How to Get Paid for What You Know. And before we get into this conversation about his newest book, I want to tell you a little bit about his current book that's already in print. It is a wonderful outline for anyone who is thinking about creating an online business. And yes, I know that I have my own courses on this subject. I know that I have my own coaching and workshops that you can attend on this subject. But if you're looking for something that you can buy with a single purchase of a book, How to Get Paid for What You Know is wonderful. Because I was getting ready to help Graham promote his second book that's coming out September 3rd, Rebel, which we're going to talk about in this episode, I decided it'd probably be a good idea. Graham is one of those elite clients that I've worked with. It'd probably be a great idea to read his first book. And so a couple of weeks ago, I read this book, and you know what? I've been around some pretty incredible online business people. I've been full-time self-employed as an online business owner since 2008. I've generated millions of dollars of revenue on my own. However, I will tell you, there were some enlightening things that Graham shared in his book that reminded me of key critical components that I did in the early days, that first 2 years of my business, that I did not carry over when I made my transition from Podcast Answer Man to Mindset Answer Man. So what I will say is that I not only read Graham's book, How to Get Paid for What You Know, but I've also been taking notes and creating an outline of the things that I want to go back and start doing again. And I've been in business since 2008, and I'm still doing incredibly well. That's how valuable the first book was. And that's why I'm even more excited to bring to you this conversation because I know that the content of this new book, Rebel, is even more aligned with what I hope that you will be able to experience as far as getting clarity on who you are and how to create work that aligns with you creating a life on your terms, regardless of what the expectations of others are. Without any further ado, here's my conversation with Graham. Let's talk a little bit about your newest book. It's called Rebel. What's behind the name?
I have John Gordon to thank for the name. I was spending a day with him, and I was trying to get some coaching from him actually on more of public speaking. I was like, "Hey, man, you're a top keynote speaker. Like, how do you think about the business of speaking? How would you encourage me to start getting onto more stages? Because I want to be doing what you're doing 10, 20 years from now. Like, that's what I imagined." And he was more interested in what my next book was going to be. He's like, "Well, what's the next book?" And I just published How to Get Paid for What You Know. It had been out like for 6 months. I was like, "Bro, can I just enjoy this first book? Like, can I take a break?" And he was really interested in, well, what's the message of the next book? And it was in this moment of like workshopping ideas of things I could write about next. He said, "Well, what's your life story? Walk me through the story." So I was starting to walk through my story and my journey that involved, wanting to be a rock star and a musician and not wanting to go to college and everyone pushing me this direction and me going this direction. And then that dream dying, and we can get into some of that because it's relevant to Rebel. But then when I lost my second series of jobs in the Great Recession, which got me to start this business, and everyone's like, "Are you going to get a new job?" I'm like, "No, I'm starting a blog about audio recording." And like, I never did what anybody suggested I do. And he said, "Bro, you're a rebel. You just don't do what people tell you to do." And the moment he said it, Cliff, it was like, that's not language that I've used for myself before, but it was like I better understood my story when he used that word. And I was like, "Bro, I think there's something here." And we just spent the next hour and a half like brainstorming, is there a pattern to what I've done in multiple areas of my life? And is there a benefit to being rebellious? And what are we rebelling from? And it just, the whole book and the whole framework like came within 48 hours. And we pitched it to the publisher 6 days later, and they signed it as my second book. And so really, all that to say, the book is a smidge about my story, but it's more about, man, the path I have found to success, to satisfaction with the life I've built, and to service to others, which I think is something that you're a big fan of all three. The path I found to doing that is just, you can sum it up in 4 words: do it your way.
Yeah.
I've been doing it my way. And that, another language for that is a rebel, someone that says, "You know what? Everyone's gone one way, conformity. That's the enemy," because I don't think that's working so well for marriages, parenting, finances, health, the way we run our business. People are quitting and burning out. Like, it's not working. So why not go our own way? And most of us don't know who we are, what our own way even looks like. We're too busy living life to do some of the deep work. So it's kind of like a coaching session in a book. And a lot of the stuff is stuff that you love to talk about and you coach people through as well, like doing some of the deep inner work to better know yourself so that you can craft a life, not just a business, but a life that you love.
One of the things that you say is I think the subtitle, "Find Yourself by Not Following the Crowd." This is something you also wrote about in How to Get Paid for What You Know. One of the things to do is to have your hot takes. And I recall when you had me as a guest on your show, we somehow got around to talking about personality tests. And I said, I have a very unpopular opinion about personality tests that goes against every one of my mentors, every one of my peers, who, by the way, some of them was making tens of thousands of dollars selling personality tests.
Yep,
so
go figure.
But it's just like I have such a strong opinion on the downsides of actually taking a personality test without having a coach to help you not put yourself into a box.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love this. There's another scripture that comes to mind. It says, "Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed." Mm-hmm. And the fun part about that scripture is the way that I might have thought about it years ago is that make sure that if I have plans, that I talk to a lot of people and find that there's an agreement among those people that what I'm pursuing is a good idea. That's the way I would have interpreted that in the past. It is not how I interpret it today.
Mm-hmm.
Where the shift in my interpretation came from is when I went from podcast answer man to rebranding myself as mindset answer man. I went to my mastermind group, and we're talking some pretty impressive people, Ray Edwards, Michael Stelzner, Pat Flynn, Mark Mason, Leslie Samuel. So I went to these guys and I said, I am so bored to tears on the technical sides of podcasting. And my heart is to help people with business strategy and mindset, focused heavily on the mindset stuff. And they're like, but Cliff, whatever you do, just keep selling courses, keep selling this, keep this. You've got to keep that, keep producing that podcast. And I said, I've tried. I've been doing it for the last year, and every time I create a new piece of content, a little piece of my soul dies.
Yep.
And they said, well, then go and hire a team of people to produce the content for you. And I said, guys, when I think about building a team and managing them to go and do that, a little piece of my soul dies.
Yep.
And so all of them, except for one, and Ray Edwards was the one, all of them said, Cliff, you're making a huge mistake. You've got to keep podcast answering. You've got to keep those streams of incomes. You got to do this. And I didn't. I tried for a while, and then I said, no, I've got to go follow my own path. I have to go my own way.
Yep.
And then it occurred to me, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. And what they did do is by going to the many advisors, in this case, these 6, I got all sorts of potential pitfalls, potential disastrous outcomes, potential things that I wasn't yet thinking about and all of this other stuff. But as a result of them bringing them up, I'm like, maybe there are some ways that I can mitigate the potential problems and drawbacks to this decision, but I am going to make this decision. So my plans did succeed. And I believe that they would have not succeeded as well had I not had the advice of many counsels, but I still didn't go with what the crowd thought I should do.
That's a great example of, like, there's 2 different things we're talking about. We're not saying don't get counsel or have people speak into your life. What we're talking about is the best way to use counsel and having people speak into your life is to know very clearly what you value in life, what your vision for life is, and who you are and who you're not, because you can't ask someone else to tell you who you are. This is interesting because this is something I bring up in the book. I call it the 2-way mirror of meaning. It's just because it's the way it makes sense in my head visually. So like a 2-way mirror, you can see through one side in a police station, but the other side looks like reflective glass. This is kind of the way I imagine if you're insecure about yourself or about a big decision, let's say like you were, and I've made pivots too. I left the music space, the recording revolution, because the same thing, part of my soul died when I was making that content, even though it was incredibly successful. I was like, I need to do something different. When you're unsure though about that different, and you go to someone else to ask, is this a crazy idea? The problem with that is that we're looking for meaning. It's like we're looking at a mirror, but we're seeing through the see-through side. So we don't see ourselves when we look into the mirror. We see everybody else. Oh, this is your mastermind. This is what Pat's doing. This is what Mark's doing. This is what everyone's doing. Maybe I should do what they're doing, because we just see them from our angle. And the problem is when we ask them, hey, what do you think about this decision? And they look back at us, they're on the reflective side and they see themselves. And they say, well, you should do what we're doing. This is how I made that decision. This is how I would do it. And you're like, I guess that makes sense. And it's this reinforcing mechanism where I never actually get to see myself. I only see what they're doing and they only see what they're doing. And that's how we get to this place of, well, I asked smart people, successful people, people who care about me, and this is what they told me to do. And it's either contrary to what we feel in our heart, which is confusing, especially if we care about them and respect their opinion, or if we don't have anything in our heart, we'll just go do what they're doing anyway. So that's what in the book, I'm really trying to help people, feel permission to do it their way. Because a lot of times, depending on your background, you may not feel permission to do it, or there's season of life. If it's a really hard season, you're like, I just got to do what I got to do. But you can still have permission to dream, which is the first part of the Rebel framework. We really have to start with those dreams because they're clues to how we're wired. But not only the permission, but like the how. And this is what you do a really good job of, Cliff, is helping people. I mean, I worked with you. I hired you years ago to help me think through. I was making a big transition, how to better understand myself in that season so then I can make better decisions moving forward, not just for my business, but for my life.
Yeah, I love the metaphor of the two-way mirror. And what I love about that is in my coaching, one of the things I tell people, say, listen, I know you'd really love for me to tell you what to do, help you get clarity and affirm what the exact next right steps are. But here's what I will tell you. If I do give you any input or advice from my perspective, I just need you to know it's all autobiographical, meaning that it's all coming from what I've experienced, what's worked for me, and what I've observed in others. But the thing is you're not me and you're not them. You're you. I'm not saying that if you beg me for advice or my thought or my feedback, I will give it to you, but with the disclaimer that you understand that just because it's worked for me and just because it's worked for others doesn't mean it's right for you. So I love that. So you talked about dream, and you mentioned that there's the R in the Rebel framework. So tell us a little bit about the Rebel framework.
The way I think about it is, if being a rebel has been the secret sauce for me, and I see in other people, you see the people that are like doing the dangerous thing. There's a lot of rebels in history, whether you want to look at all the way back to Jesus Christ, to Martin Luther King Jr., to Steve Jobs, like people who did things differently. People don't typically like rebels that are swimming upstream, unconventional thinking at first. But those are the people that ended up changing the world. And then we go, oh, yeah, Steve Jobs was brilliant. Oh, yeah, Dr. Martin Luther King, brilliant. Yeah, Jesus Christ is brilliant. But their contemporaries didn't think they were so brilliant at the time. So if you start to do that, the question is how? How can you do that? How can you become a rebel? How can you find yourself so that you can step into your uniqueness? Because I think when you're stepping into your uniqueness, it's to your advantage. So when I was reverse engineering it, for me, I was like, I love acronyms, keep it simple. So Rebel is the framework. It's a 5-part framework that I take people through in the book. And it really is feels like a coaching session in a book. I want it to be something you could do, read it, do it. The R stands for resolve to dream again. It's like, it's all starts with like, you know what? Everything is going to be pushing me this way or that way. I have to put a stake in the ground and resolve to get back to either a dream I once had, or maybe dreaming for the first time, because I grew up being told dreams are for kids. You got to be realistic. You got to just go out there and add value to the world. And it doesn't matter what you want. What matters is what is going to work and pay the bills or whatever. Or you might have had a hard season. And this is something that is really common, Cliff. And I talk about it. I call it the identity crisis intersection. So all of us have had dreams at some point. May not use that language, but the dream could be, for me, it was to be a rock star. And I pursued trying to get a record deal in my late teens, early 20s. And when the deals were not really coming in and all I was getting were these development deal offers, which means there's no advance money. It's just, we'll sign you and see what happens. And I was engaged to be married and I needed the advance money to like be a husband. And I had to make a decision, keep pursuing music or give up and get a real job. And I gave up to try to take care of my wife. Well, we all have these moments where, for me, my music dream died. It might be a relationship dream that dies, a divorce happens, or it might be an actual death of a child or a family member. It might be a death of a career. The economy changes and you're laid off and everything's different. Like something died. Then we're at this place I call the identity crisis intersection, because our dreams really are tied to our identity. When our dreams die, whether we realize it or not, part of our soul goes with it, because they are us. They reflect part of who we are. They aren't our complete self, but they're a clue as to who we are. So when that happens, you have a choice. You're at the fork in the road. You can either go left, which is the path of conformity, which is like, get back in line. Just, that was stupid. We don't get what we want in this world. For me, that was embarrassing to tell everyone for 10 plus years growing up that I'm going to be a musician. I'm going to get a record deal. And I told everybody it didn't happen. That was stupid. I'm never going to dream again. And I floated for like 4 years of just trying to pretend to be happy, living a normal life. And that didn't work. It didn't get me anywhere. But I tried to pretend that. That's one path. And we all do it. Marriage failed. I'm not going to get married again, or not going to date again. I had a child leave the home and we have a broken relationship. I'm not going to pursue children anymore. I'm not going to, that's over. The dream of having a healthy relationship with is over. We just conform and get back in line. Maybe it's not for me. Or you do have another choice. And that choice is to dream again. maybe pursue that dream once more again, or maybe it's to dream something new. But you have to keep dreaming, because the moment you stop, you get right in line with this current of conformity. You're in the river, you're in a stream, the culture, your family, the people in your community, it's moving. And if you do nothing, you're still moving somewhere. It's just not maybe where you want to go. And you're a big proponent of intentional living and all this stuff. You're going somewhere, and that's your choice unless you choose to dream again. So I start in the book with resolve to dream again. And honestly, Cliff, I mentioned you in the book because one of the exercises you took me through years ago, it was 50 dreams, 50 things you want. And this is one of the hardest things you made me do. I still have I should have pulled it out. I still have the darn legal pad it took me a week, Cliff, to come up with 50 things I wanted, because and I think people are different, because I've taken my girls through this exercise and they're very different. My oldest is like 50 things, no problem. I got it, Dad. And my youngest took her 25 minutes to come up with 3. She's like, I don't know. She's the one that's like, whatever everybody else wants to do. And I think that's 2 different types of people in the world. And I'm like more like my youngest, which is like, is it okay to talk about what I want? Do I even know what I want? And that was hard for me. But it was so transformative for me to go through this experiment that it stuck with me. I coach other people to do it. And I put it in the book as one of the first exercises. And I credit you in the book for being the person that taught it to me, because I realized 2 things, Cliff. One, it was hard for me to know what I want, which, how are you going to get anywhere in life if you don't actually know what you want? 2, I had a wrong thinking that dreaming and talking about what I want, that's bad because it means you're just focused on yourself and just getting what you want. I didn't realize that it was a huge clue as to the way I'm wired. And boy, doesn't the world benefit if I better understand the way God designed me through my desires and wants. It doesn't mean I go chase all 50 things as if that's the whole point. That's a shallow view of that exercise. I think a deeper view is those 50 things reveal something about you that's really helpful to know, so that as you start to craft a vision for your life and make decisions, you're like, this is what Graham really cares about in the world. This is what my family cares about, not what everyone else is doing. And that's what's powerful about it. So that's the first part of the framework, is starting with those resolving to dream again.
I love that. So many different things. Number one, I'm thrilled that you've included that in your coaching with other people, and the fact that it's going to be included in this book. I'm really excited about that. The other thing I love about this is there are a couple, so that exercise, the 50 things I want exercise, I'm going to recommend everybody get the book so you can do that. By the way, when you give them the exercise for the 50 things, do you tell them that when you're sitting down and doing this, do you give them the disclaimer that you cannot filter it? Is this selfish? Is this materialistic?
Yep.
Is this possible? Do you give them the instructions that you must put everything that comes to your mind, no matter what you think somebody might think if they actually saw this list? Good.
Yes. Yeah.
Wonderful. And then do you go and actually say, after you got the top 50, do you then say, take from that and create your top 10 dreams?
Top 10. Yep.
I love it. So, and the other thing that I just want to point out for those who may have difficulty with this idea of dreaming, because at some level, the word dream brings up abstract thoughts in people's minds, right? So I think to bring it down to earth, this exercise certainly helps. But another framework to get you thinking along the lines of dreams is 2 things. Number one, what is something that you would like to have as a part of your life that is not a part of your life today? Or what's something you would like to experience? Now, I know that sounds a lot like, what do I want and stuff, and some of that will convert over. But more than anything, what is something that you feel like you should be experiencing in life that's missing? Whatever you come up with, that's a dream. And another question that is incredibly helpful is, I wonder what life would be like if fill in the blank. And so when I was back in selling insurance in my mom and dad's insurance agent, I said, I wonder what life would be like if I could make a living from creating content online instead of selling insurance and taking over the insurance agency. And then about a decade later, I wonder what life would be like if I could just coach people about business strategy and mindset instead of answering their technical questions about how to launch a podcast. The framework that I like to give is, what would life be like if, and just fill in that blank and ask it. And the other thing, just a quote, an affirmation, never quit your daydreams.
Yeah. That's good.
Never quit your daydreams. All right. What's the E in the Rebel framework? The first E.
Yeah. So the first E. So you're starting at 30,000 foot view with these wants, these desires, these dreams. Again, they're not perfect. It's a good starting place, though. You're getting a better clue of who you are. So that's the resolving to dream again. The first E is to establish the outcomes you want in life. And this is where we get a little more specific, which is kind of tying into your just question you just asked. And I think Rich Litvin talks about the 3-year question. You know, we bump into each other 3 years from now, and I'm like, Cliff, how are you? You're like, Graham, it's been the best 3 years of my life. And I'm like, whoa, why? Tell me about that. Like that exercise of what would have to be true in your life that 3 years from now when I bump into yours telling me it's been the best 3 years of your life. And this is like a very open-ended but profound question. I don't just mean your business. You could fill in the blank with how your marriage has improved, like what that trip you finally took that you've been talking about taking, an experience you had that you wanted to have, whatever it could be. This is something that's been so transformative for me and I'll try to do this regularly because I'll get off track. I was even just before this call, I was sitting on my sofa here in the office and I was like, I think I'm even in this moment getting off track of where am I going in life? Like I've been so focused on the book in this season, so my head's been down. But I'm like, when I zoom back out, I'm like, even after the book comes out, where do I want to be going in 2025? Like where's the family going? My wife's going through some transition vocationally. We're going through some transition with schooling, and it's like, what's the vision? So this is where you get really clear. It's hard to, again, navigate the world as a unique individual, especially if you're a business person, if you don't know specifically what you want, what the outcomes you want to have in your life 3 years from now. Like, what do you want to create? And that's Rich Litvin's very language. Like, what do you want to create? I think there's something powerful about getting clear on that. What kind of day do you want to have? I think one of the things I always liked about you, Cliff, when I first stumbled across your content was you're like, hey, there was a point where I want to work 3 days a week. I want to work Tuesday through Thursday. That's a good example of an outcome that you wanted at some point that probably wasn't true. But then in your mind, you're like, I wonder what it'd be like to only work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then have a 5-day weekend. Or 4-day weekend, excuse me. I'm adding an extra day a week. And that's what I've been trying to do. How can I squeeze in an extra day? But like, that's the beautiful part. And a lot of people when I ask this question to people, usually one or two things come up like, oh yeah, 3 years from now, I know for sure it would be great if this has happened. But when you have to sit with yourself a little bit longer and get more specific, it really lets you paint a picture that's more detailed that maybe you haven't sat with for a while or ever. And that, again, is a big clue as to the way you're wired and what you value, which we get to later in the book, and what maybe your family values, which you got to be so clear about that because the whole world, it's getting noisier and noisier, Cliff, telling you what you should value as an individual, as a family unit. And unless you're really clear on that, you're going to be disappointed where you end up because you're going to, again, flow with the crowd and conformity doesn't really work. So E is establish the outcomes you want.
I love that. I just had a coaching conversation 2 days ago, and I tend to start a conversation off by, hey, what do you most want to accomplish in our session today? What is absolutely essential that you walk away with before we end this conversation? And the first thing out of this person's mouth was, I need a clear pathway forward, and I need to know where to start. And I'm like, great. Where do you want to go? And he's like, I have no idea.
It's like Alice in Wonderland stuff, that it doesn't matter where you start if you don't know where you want to go.
That was exactly it. So what is it? Establish what?
Establish the outcomes you want in life.
Many people struggle to know what it is that they want because they're caught up living in a hypnotic rhythm of living according to what other people have told them they should want. Do you have a tool in this part of your book that helps them get clear about what they want?
Well, that's kind of where I start them with the R, resolving to dream again. So like that exercise of things you dream of doing, being, or having, some language that Tim Ferriss talks about, like doing, being, having. I think that's a starting point for people. And then this 3-year vision exercise and journaling that out. And then I take them through down to a level that where you took it is I take them through like mapping out the ideal day. And it's like, look, This might be a stretch, but it's like just bullet point, if you could wave a magic wand and it were up to you, how would you spend your days? And it's, again, some people, very easy. They know exactly how they would spend their days. They just don't know how to get there. Other people, am I allowed to? Like, I've never even let myself think about that. So depending on where they come from, it's hard either way, but getting them to, like, I would wake up at this time, I would do this. And like, I love your specific example with date day with your wife and 4-day weekends. Like Shay and I take Fridays off. We kind of always have. Before, when the kids were younger, it was Family Fun Friday, but then now they're in school, it's just me and Shay. So we'll go for a walk, we'll go out to lunch. We started a new podcast together about family and marriage and stuff. So we're filming podcast episodes on Fridays. It's just a chance for us to connect. And so that's like a detail, like that's what I want in my day-to-day on Fridays. So I take people down to that so they can just see it as like, look, this is like from dreaming to, it would be great if I could make money doing content instead of selling life insurance, to what do I want to do every day? Yeah. And that might be, and that's so different for everybody. And you might want a different day each day. Some people like routine and they want the same day every day. Like, this is the beauty of where you get to, it's like, if nothing else, read this book and this be the only, if this is the only moment that you give some time for yourself to just at least get clear on what you truly desire and what kind of life you want to create if you've never given yourself that permission. That's really what I'm doing in those first 2 steps of the Rebel Framework, is just getting some clarity. And I tell people there's 6 core areas of life I try to help them apply this framework to in the book. And it's your the way you spend your time, your money, your work, your health, both physical and mental, your relationships, and then your spiritual life. So I say, if it's hard for you to think about this ideal day or this vision, just pick one of those areas that you want to improve on. That it's really like, this is the area that's really frustrating me the most. It might be money, it might be career, it might be your health, it might be your relationships. Pick one of those areas, and then what would the ideal look like if that area of your life was exactly the way you wanted? What would you be doing? So like, if it's too overwhelming, zero in on one of those core areas of life. But yeah, when you get that on paper, yeah, that's profound. And one last thought here, because I just was on a podcast yesterday with my friend Colin Boyd. He's like a brilliant how to sell from stage, how to sell in your webinars. Like he help you create presentations that convert. And like his clients are some of like your past clients, like Amy Porterfield. Like, I know you helped her with her podcast years ago. He helps her with her presentations. But that whole thing of how that started, because I asked him, like, Colin, how did you get to the point where like you were like getting Jenna Kutcher and Amy Porterfield as your clients? And he's like, bro, I struggled with this idea of leadership. I didn't view myself as a leader. And one day I wrote down, no, I am a leader. And I wrote down a phrase that I wanted to be true that wasn't true yet, which is, I am a market leader of market leaders. So he's like, I know I can't lead all kinds of people, but I'm really good at this one thing, selling from stage and teaching other people how to create better sales presentations in their webinars or keynotes. And I was like, I want to be, and I view myself as teaching that and leading the market leaders in the info product space in that area. And he said 4 months after writing that down in my journal, Amy Porterfield's my client. We have a session. She sends me a video testimonial like after our session together. That's on my website forever because it's amazing. And that's the power of starting the process of getting incredibly clear. And you do this really well, Cliff, with your coaching, getting incredibly clear about what you want in life. Even as a starting point, even if you don't know how, just start by writing it down.
Yeah, it's absolutely not important at all that you know anything about how to get anything you want until you first know what it is that you want, why you want it, how your life would be improved if you had it, even believing that it's possible. You don't need to know how, but once you have all of those core elements, then it's just a decision. I will have it. I don't know what it takes, but I will have it. And then once you get there, the plan automatically comes. It is like a miraculous thing. It just happens. One of the things that I remember, I think it was Saint Ignatius or somebody from one of the saints from the Catholic Church said, the glory of God is man fully alive. And I know that you have these 6 vital core areas of life, and you talk about that and give some direction in your book. And one of the things that I like to talk about is the idea of living fully alive. In the coaching space, there's an exercise, it's called the Wheel of Life. And what you can do is you could take each of those 6 areas that you just mentioned and write them down on a piece of paper. And then on the right-hand side of it, for each category, write down on a scale of 1 to 10, how would I rate myself in this area? And do that for each of those 6 cores. And then all you have to do is begin journaling. What are some of the things that I could do to bridge the gap between where I'm currently rated and a 10? And all of this information, it is inside of you. This is where you are going to discover your identity. So I love it. All right, so we've got R and E. What's the B?
Yeah, the B is break negative thoughts, habits, and patterns. So like, you of all people know, Cliff, like it is really hard to give people new thinking and new direction and fresh vision if they are still repeating stories in their head, narratives in their head that are negative, that are limiting, that are crippling. And so it's a lot of like undoing ripping out the bad code and bad programming first so you can write some fresh new code. And so this is a little bit of just understanding how the mind works, how powerful it is. And what I have found, and maybe this is true for you, Cliff, I have found if I look back in the history of like my journey as a human being, those critical inflection points that became very important in my life, the decisions that allowed me to then meet my wife, the decisions that led me to move to Florida, where we've built this incredible life. I never would have lived in Florida. The decisions that led me to starting my first business, which I never would have done because I was scared to death to be an entrepreneur. The decision to leave that business and start another business, like whatever these inflection points were, we can almost rewrite our narrative and be like, oh yeah, I just knew what to do. And we kind of forget like the utter panic you have in real life when you don't know what to do. But if I get really honest and I think, I'm like, wait a second. I see a pattern that at every major decision I've made or I've had to make, there was a still small voice that was telling me what to do. Some people call it intuition or a hunch. I believe it's the Holy Spirit of God wanting to speak to me. But there was a moment where I got quiet enough to listen to. And that's the trick, is that I feel like God, I wish he would yell a little louder. I think he whispers. And I think intuition is very quiet. In the Old Testament, Elijah has this incredible experience where he like walks for 40 days to the mountain of God, and then he's trying to get answers from the Lord. And there's a fire and a hurricane and an earthquake, and it says the Lord was not in the earthquake or the fire or the hurricane, but after all those things was a still small voice. And that's the way God spoke to Elijah. And it's like he got the revelation he needed, and then had to walk 40 days back to where he was. But it's like, man, how are we ever going to hear that still small voice that wants to tell us where to go, what to do, talk to this person, check your text messages, listen to this podcast? There's something here for you. How are we ever going to hear that if we have this loud inner narrative telling us that's impossible, you'll never be good enough, you can't do it, whatever the thing is? And so the B is really doing something I call an inner story audit of just some 6 practical questions to kind of get people to journal through a process of getting clear on, what are the thoughts and the stories in my head anyway, like trapping them on paper, as they say, and then challenging them. Is this true? Maybe. What else could be true, if not more true than this that I'm believing now? And just starting to unpack some of that junk. And that's what that part of the framework is all about, getting that out.
I love that. Number one, I love that you're giving journal prompts in this section of the book. I'm a huge fan of journaling. I love the idea of trapping the narrative down into a static physical form, because when it's up here, it's out of our grasps. You can't grab the whole thing. But when you start to trap it in a document, like you said, what a great metaphor for that, because it puts a picture in my head of trapping it, pulling it, and right there on paper. Now I can investigate it. You can't investigate it just up here. Yeah. You have to get it and see it. So I love that. And it reminds me, this section also reminds me of a Rich Litvin quote. The results you are getting are perfect for the system that you have created. So the thing is many of us want to change the results that we have in life. Thing is, the results that we have in life are because of the actions that we have taken. So our actions always equal our results. And the actions that we are taking, every single action you have ever taken, and by the way, avoiding taking action is an action itself.
Yep.
But every action you've ever taken was always determined by how you were thinking and how you were feeling in the moment you took the action. And the thing is people say, well, I just need to change how I think and how I feel. But you can't until you discover the beliefs that are causing you to think and feel that way with this external circumstance and this stimuli. So I love that, the fact that we're getting to the root cause, which is this belief system, this narrative, these string of thoughts that cause us to think and feel the way we do about whatever it is that we're about ready to pursue next. What's the second E, Graham?
Well, yeah, you said it. You got to first get to the root cause of these negative beliefs of what you actually think. What do you think? What do you feel? So we got to break some of that first, identify it to break it, so that the second E in the rebel is to engage in rebellious new thoughts. So it's like everybody wants to go do different so we can get the different outcome, but you really can't go do different, like you said, unless you've undone the stuff that's going to just keep pulling you back. You know, if there is a true upper limit problem, like Gay Hendrick will say in The Big Leap, if there really is, like, you're never going to get past it until you kind of identify what are the things keeping me stuck. So it really is breaking with the B, and then the second E is engaging in rebellious new thoughts. And in this chapter in the book and in this process, there's kind of a lot of different exercises, so it kind of gets all over the place, but I kind of share a little bit of how, once you know a bit of where you want to go and you've undone some of the negative thinking, how can you practically change? So we talk about everything from my morning routine, which, you know, people have their own choices and thoughts about morning routines, but another simple acronym that might be helpful to somebody, it's called WAIT, W-A-I-T, like wait. Before you go out the door, wait, do this first. And so the W is wisdom. I always try to start with reading something from wisdom literature. So a lot of times I'm just reading the Bible, right? If there's if you like Stoicism, just read something that's thousands of years old. Because if all you read is your contemporaries, aka the last 100 years, you're still stuck in the conformity of our current age. So you need something that's way outside of our culture and our time frame to think differently. So I like to start with the wisdom in the Bible. A is affirmation, and this is again a powerful tool of what are you affirming about you that you know is true? What are you affirming about you that you want to become true? Because it's very easy, again, with the previous part of the framework of these negative thoughts. One of my negative thoughts that I have struggled with is like, I'm not enough. I have to do more to prove that I'm enough. And that goalpost keeps moving. So it's like, I have to affirm that I am enough because of the way God made me. God made me in his image and he's pleased with me. And so I have to affirm that. And then there's other things that I affirm that I want to see written down on paper that I want to become true. Like, I am a New York Times bestselling author, right? That's just a beautiful thing for me to see on paper to remind me that I want to become the kind of person that could become a New York Times bestselling author. What does a New York Times bestselling author do? How do they think? Who do they talk to? Like, I need to write a book that's worthy of that. And also, you need a lot of other things to go your way too. That's sort of an arbitrary one. But again, affirmation. So in my journal, I'm writing down what is true, what I want to be true. The I in wait is imagination. And this is where I like to practice stillness and quiet. I'll set a timer. If I'm really good, 20 minutes where I'm just like sitting in silence and I'm trying to pre-imagine either something that's going to happen that day, like if I'm going on a podcast or an interview or I'm going to be coaching somebody, I want to imagine it going well. Sometimes with this book, Cliff, like I've just sat and imagined what would it be like when the book is out and it's now my second book and it's in Barnes & Noble or it's in airport bookstores and there's stacks of it and people are walking by and they see it and go, oh, that's cool. I even imagined what the cover would look like long before the publisher was like, hey, let's design the cover for this book. I already knew what it would look like in my mind. It was such a strong image that when she designed some ideas, I was like, can we incorporate red? I always see it as red. Can we incorporate this? Because I had like pre-imagined it. So imagination is powerful because you're really creating new neural pathways. You're starting to think in terms of possibility. You're starting to like have that powerful, like one of the books, Cliff, that you recommended for me when we worked together was Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And that book really was an unlock for me of, man, the mind is more powerful than I think it is in a very scientific, not woo-woo kind of way of like, look, there's hardly any difference for the subconscious mind between a real physical experience or a deeply well thought out imagined experience. And that's something that I wanted to, like, you can get some reps in on whatever you're trying to do, even in your imagination before you do the day, and your mind has pre-experienced it. So that's what I try to spend a few minutes doing. And then T
before
is
you go to
thankfulness.
okay. Go finish thankful. I don't want to shortcut thankfulness, but I want to go with that thing about reps. Say what you want to say about thankfulness, though.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, like everyone knows the power of gratitude, but it is so true.
Wait, Graham. Does everyone know the power of gratitude?
Well, everyone I talk to says, "Yeah, I know." But saying I know, I've heard that before doesn't mean you're doing it. And as you know, like again, this is specifically with journaling, like I write out 10 things I'm thankful for, grateful for that day. I have to force myself to do that because it gets me grounded. It gives me perspective. And it does shift. There's so many things that are happening in your physiology when you're coming from a place of gratitude, because now you're realizing how wealthy you are in the best sense of the word. Like what you have, you're like, oh, I'm good. It moves you out of that desperation. I need to, I have. Oof.
Yeah.
And when you have, like, man, you're in such a calm place. So I always end with that.
Yeah, I love it. Gratitude is such an amazing thing, an amazing practice. And here's the thing. I don't care how long you live on this earth, you'll never be able to express gratitude for all of the wealth and abundance in your life. There is literally an infinite number of things for you to be thankful for. And some people say, Cliff, I just don't feel it right now. I said, well, let me ask you the question. When you woke up this morning, was the earth rotating precisely the right distance around the sun to keep you from burning to death or freezing to death overnight? Yes.
Good
wow.
place to start.
Let's be thankful about that. Do you currently have oxygen in your lungs? Yeah. Wow. Boom. And I mean, I sit there, we could spend our entire coaching session on just creating a list, because we will never run out of things. You are so abundantly wealthy. So many things are going great for you. And yeah, I'm not saying there's not things that are undesirable, inconvenient, and unexpected that show up in life. But I will say this, at any given moment in time, you could choose to take your focus off of that for just a moment. Because here's what happened. You said there are so many things happen physiologically when we express gratitude. Here's what happens when we're focused on what's not going right, what we're not thankful for. We get our brain waves go into what's called high range beta brainwave state. And that is equivalent to locking in what's called the survival mode, the fight or flight mode. And when we get there, all of a sudden cortisol is running into our bloodstream, and it is cutting off the neural pathways to our prefrontal cortex, which means the creative solution thinking part of our brain we don't have access to. Yeah. And so what happens is when you shift to gratitude, and we're not talking about giving it platitudes, we're talking about really feeling the gratitude for the abundance. Your brain waves start to slow down, mid-range beta waves, low range. And if you could actually focus on your breath, and what you're doing is you're taking your outside focus and put it in inside. And if you could do that for even 60 seconds, you will bring your brain waves all the way down to what's called an alpha brainwave state. And if you can think or imagine something that you're thankful for, you get all the way down to a theta brainwave state. And at that point, you can hear the voice of God. You can hear the creative voice, the solution part of your brain kick in, and ideas begin to flow. So I don't want to, and by the way, I don't think most people know about the power of gratitude.
Well, not that deeply, that's for sure.
So you said, oh gosh, what was it? You said engage. The second E was engage with rebellious thoughts. Oh, and you were talking about imagination, putting in the reps. Have you heard the studies that have been done of people who were sent to rehab, and they went into the gym and they were lifting weights physically? And then there were people who were put into rehab, but they were actually sent, and in meditative states, they were actually doing reps in the gym, but only imagining it. And the results in muscle mass building was the same between both groups.
Wow. Yeah, I hear stuff like that all the time. It's like, what? You know, it makes me think of the Matrix, you know, like what is real, you know? If your mind thinks it's real, your body thinks it's real. So it's just so powerful, man, of like, we're such a rational culture in the West in this modern era that we're looking for like empirical stuff I can see, touch, taste, smell, and we just think rationally. And I think as someone who has benefited from a rational mind, it's been hard to start to understand there's a lot of other things at play that I can't quantify or fully understand, which is the faith component. This is something that, Jesus has been talking about for thousands of years of like, man, faith it's hard to quantify, but that is the key to unlocking so much. And so your mind, what your belief system is, really matters. And so one of the things I think I love about this kind of work, and I'm still doing it, is I'm a how person. How can I do this? How can I pull it off? And that's a great question. A lot of people don't even get there. They're just like, it's not possible. Well, how could it be possible? That's a much better question. But I'm trying to become, and I'm slowly am becoming, a who person. Who do I need to be for this to be a reality? And that's a more powerful question. And that gets away from the rational, like, what are the tactics? What are the strategies? Who do you want to be? Who do you want to show up as in your marriage, in your business? Do you want to show up as that stressed out person? Or do you want to be that calm, grounded, like, man, he's never fazed person? Become that person. What would that person think, like, do? How would they spend their days? Like, you start to unravel it from that side of things, and then you get to the how, like what you talked about. Never start with the how, but that's what I'm really interested in with these new rebellious thoughts. It really is, who do you want to be in your day to day? To get the thing you wanted in step 1 and 2, the dreams, the vision, and we've broken the negative thinking, then who are you showing up as every single day? So I walk through some of these just practical things. There's something you could start your day well, and maybe you've had this, Cliff, where you're like, my morning routine was great. But then by lunch, like, your day is train wrecked because of something out of your control, or something happened, or like the internet blew up on your big webinar or whatever. And so you've lost it. You've lost that state of serenity. So even in the middle of the day, you got to have something to bring you back. So something I love in the Old Testament is something called stones of remembrance that, Joshua had the Israelites set up once they finally crossed into the promised land and they crossed the Jordan River. He said, hey, before we leave the Jordan River, I want you guys to get 12 stones out of the river, and we're going to keep them with us as a nation, one to represent each of the 12 tribes of Israel, just to remember. So when your kids ask, what are these stones for, Dad? Grandpa, you say, we got them out of the Jordan River, which we crossed out of the desert into the promised land to remind us of God's faithfulness. So they're just a rock, but the rock is a stone of remembrance of provision, of vision, of where we came from, where we're going. And so you got to have something physical. It could be a sticky note. It could be a picture. It could be a quote, a book cover, sometimes book covers of books that were really meaningful to me in a season where I had major transformation. When I see the cover, I'm like, oh yeah, remember how I made a big quantum leap with that book? That could be a stone of remembrance. Anything to get you right back to where you were.
I love that. All right, let's wrap things up with the L in the Rebel framework.
This is the hardest one for me personally. The L stands for let go, specifically of outcomes and other people's opinions. So this is the irony, is we establish outcomes in step 2, but then the key, I think, to being a true rebel and to having that satisfaction and fulfillment is actually to not obsess over the outcomes. You just got to let go. Like, where you want to go. You've gotten clear. This is the vision I have for my life. And yet I'm going to not be outcome driven, because I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. I know you don't like personality tests, but I'm very, whatever personality test I take, there's some element of, you like to go after something and create it, reverse engineer it, and make stuff happen. And that's a beautiful thing. But the shadow side of that strength in my life is I'm not satisfied till I get there. I'm not a journey person. I'm a destination person. And one of the things I'm working on actively is realizing that that's not bringing me a lot of fulfillment and joy when I'm just so focused on the outcome. When you hit that outcome, you're happy and then it wears off. If you don't hit that outcome, you're disappointed, even though it might have been a really good experience. One of my friends, John Gordon, says, this sums it up for me: if you love the process, you'll love what the process produces. And so his encouragement is, don't be so obsessed over the producing part of it, the outcome. Learn to love the thing you're doing. And if you love it, if you're a singer and you love performing for people, you're going to love what that produces in your career. If you're a coach and you love coaching, you're going to love the outcomes that come from that. So learning to let go of the specific outcomes and just love the process is important. And then finally, letting go of people's opinions. That's the whole point of being a rebel, is you don't care what other people do or say, but we're human, so we kind of care. So in this part of the book, I help people think through crafting some personal or family values, like value statements. We as a family, or me as a person, I value this. Like maybe it's freedom, maybe it's travel, maybe it's hospitality, maybe it's whatever it is. Like, know what your values are, and again, write them down. You might know them, you might actually be living them out, but have you ever written them down so you can look at them and go, this is what Cliff is all about. This is what the Ravenscraft family is all about. And when you see that, that helps you keep to your North Star, because as you progress as a rebel, it's going to be a lifetime of people saying, why are you doing that? I heard someone say just on a podcast yesterday, the first question they'll ask is, why do you want to do that, Cliff? Why? But then they'll start to ask you how. How did you do that? Once they see that it's worked out for you.
Some will ask. Some will continue to criticize, condemn, and complain. But you're right. Eventually, some people will be interested. It's like, oh wow, I was once very skeptical. I had a friend of mine many years ago. He says, Cliff, I'm going to tell you something that I've been keeping a secret just between me and myself and I. And that is, I used to really condemn and criticize you in my own mind. I thought you were only about the money and all of this other stuff. And I couldn't understand why you charged so many people so much money to teach them how to podcast when you could have done it for much less, and all this other stuff and blah, blah, blah. And I just created this narrative about who you were in my head. And every time I heard somebody praise your name, I just had this sinking feeling of resentment. And he goes, but man, I've been following your journey, and I see what you're able to do for your wife and what you're able to do for your kids. And I see all the things that you do, and the ways you show up for tens of thousands of people for free. And I just don't have the margin for that. And I've been struggling for years trying to make it on $50 an hour. And quite frankly, I just took a job somewhere else, and now I understand why, a lot more about those things, and I have a greater appreciation for the decisions you made, in spite of the fact that people like me judged you along the way.
Wow, that's pretty honest.
Yep. Graham, where can people find your book?
Yeah, you can go to therebelbook.com, and if you pre-order before September, I got a bunch of awesome bonuses that actually help you learn and do the book now. You don't have to wait for the book. I have a journal, the Rebel Journal, you can download right away, which has all the exercises from the book. So you can just start doing the work now. And then there's about an hour-long video masterclass with John Gordon, who wrote the foreword to this book, where I teach you through the concepts more in depth and some of the frameworks in the video masterclass. There's a few other great bonuses as well, but might as well jump on it now. Wherever you pre-order it, you can take your receipt back to therebelbook.com and get those bonuses.
Therebelbook.com. Graham, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to leave with parting words?
All I'll say is that the reason we're frustrated, Cliff, is because we're living out of alignment. So the best thing you could do is figure out who you are, get aligned with who you are, and then I think the lid's going to come off for success, satisfaction, and service to others.
Well, what I can say is this. I worked with Graham for 6 months when he was making the pivot and transition into the work that he's doing today. And the idea and dream of his first book, How to Get Paid for What You Know, was just an idea at the time. I can't believe that I put it off for so long. It's like, well, I'm getting ready to interview Graham about his second book. I should probably read his first. Oh. So I did that. The reason why I bring all this up is your style of writing. It's so clear, so concise, easy to follow. And I know that you'll do the same with Rebel. The concepts that we've talked here, there's no doubt in my mind. These are you're teaching the things that I know people need, the basics of how to create a life according to who you are, and to get clarity about who you are and what you want. And so thank you for doing this work, Graham.
Yeah, thank you, brother. It's been a pleasure.
Well, there you go. That was my conversation with Graham Cochrane, and I want to highly encourage you, go and pre-order this book today. TheRebelBook.com. Also, the link is in the show notes. And I know that September 3rd is quite a ways away. Well, depending on when you're listening to this. Here's the situation. If you buy the book now and then head over to therebelbook.com. You'll get $300 in free bonuses. And here's what I know about Graham. His free bonuses are top notch. He does so much with his free content that adds value. There's a reason why he's built 2 separate 7-figure businesses. And if you are pursuing your own entrepreneurial journey, you should probably just sign up and pre-order the book and go through this process just to witness how beautifully he's set up this pipeline to guide people through a book purchase, and how he continues to communicate and to market his message with purpose and with a heart of service. therebelbook.com. And real quickly here, I want to leave you with a message, a testimonial that Graham Cochrane gave to me not too long after we finished our 6 months of coaching together. Graham had already built his Recording Revolution technical YouTube channel, built it up to over $1 million in revenue a year, and he felt it was absolutely essential that he pursue something different. This brand where he would help people find their true identity, find a way of creating a knowledge-based business. And he was experiencing some concerns about the pivot. And this is what happens to a lot of us who have a great deal of success building on top of the things that we know that work, the things that have driven us to a great place in profitability. Our income is flowing, but then all of a sudden we might have a desire for something different. And then we begin to ask, well, what am I going to do? What if I fail? What if this? And what if that? And I'm not, why me? The imposter syndrome. I will tell you that if you have accumulated a great amount of success throughout your professional journey, through the landscape of building a profitable business, but you're looking to get some real feedback on how to make some necessary changes in any area of your life, coaching could be the answer. And this message from Graham will share with you what he thinks about the potential of you hiring someone like me to be that coach. By the way, I'm just going to let Graham take it out. If you are interested in coaching, email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. That email address will be in the show notes as well. Put coaching in the subject line. And I'd love to get to know what's going on in your world, where you've been, where you are now, and where your dreams will take you next.
Hey, my name is Graham Cochrane, and I'm an online business owner, coach, host of the Graham Cochrane Show podcast, and the author of the book, How to Get Paid for What You Know. And I have the privilege to call Cliff my friend, and I got to work with him through a coaching experience for 6 months, and it was fantastic. I think one of the things that helped me the most, and one of the things I absolutely love about Cliff and working with him, is that Cliff pays attention to the words you say. So he would literally write down words I would say, things that would just come out of my mouth that I didn't even know I was saying, and say them back to me. And they were like a mirror he was holding up to me, showing me what my subconscious is thinking, the way I actually framed things. And it was so jarring sometimes to hear the words that I would say about myself or my situation. And he would correct me and challenge me and push back on things. I think working with Cliff was both fun and uncomfortable at the same time, which I think is a good thing. I always came knowing that when Cliff sat down with me, he was giving me his 100% attention, and he was for me, and he wanted to help me see transformation in my life. I had a real great experience being able to work through some pivotal things in a big pivotal point in my career and in my work, and Cliff was super instrumental in helping me have clarity, helping me have confidence as well in who I already am, not who I need to become or evolve into, but who God made me to be and how I can continue to press into who I already am more. So grateful for working with Cliff, grateful for his friendship. He truly is a cheerleader for you.
You know, you need to surround yourself with people who really believe in you and will fight for you. And Cliff is one of those guys. So it's an honor to call him a coach and a friend. I couldn't be more happy to recommend Cliff to you in any way, shape, or form. You need some Cliff in your life.